The Galactic Dominion did not believe in ghosts. For centuries their rule over the stars had been absolute. They had crushed rebellions, eradicated upstart species, and tamed the great war beasts of the void. The Dominion was law, order, and power incarnate. And yet, for generations an eerie whisper had followed them like a shadow. The humans, they were not officially recorded in Dominion archives. There were no known territories, no embassies, no evidence of their existence beyond the desperate tales of broken civilizations. Yet every species that spoke their name did so with an edge of reverence and fear. It was said that once, long ago, the Dominion had tried to conquer them. It was said that they had failed. And it was said that in the darkness of the cosmos, the humans still lurked, watching, waiting. For centuries, it had been dismissed as a fable. But that was before the fleet appeared. Admiral Kaelsar of the Dominion's Third Fleet stared at the massive holographic projection in the war chamber of his flagship, Vrexel's Wrath. The star charts detailed an anomaly, no, an invasion. An armada of unknown origin had breached Dominion space, moving with purpose. Kaelsar's 4 golden eyes narrowed as he studied the formation. There was no doubt about it, this was a war fleet. But what troubled him wasn't just its size. It was the way it moved. The Dominion was accustomed to brutal efficiency, overwhelming numbers, and technological superiority. Their enemies either attacked recklessly or cowered behind planetary defenses. But this fleet maneuvered like a predator. Their vanguard ships were staggered at irregular intervals, running deep scans without tripping Dominion sensor alarms. Flanking units moved in calculated sweeps, as if preparing for an ambush that no Dominion commander had even conceived of. Their heavy battleships stayed just outside known weapons ranges, hovering on the edges of detection. It was as if they knew the Dominion's technology, down to its very limitations. And the strangest part? There were no transmissions. No demands for surrender. No proclamations of war. Just silence. The Dominion did not fear war. But this silence, it was a kind of warfare they had never encountered before. Have we identified them? Kaelsar growled, his voice reverberating through the chamber. A nervous officer, his exoskeleton clicking, swallowed hard. We analyzed their ship architecture, Admiral. The designs are unfamiliar, but the energy signatures are unmistakable. They match the old records from the... He hesitated. From the Forbidden War. A hush fell over the war chamber. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Kaelsar's mandibles twitched. You mean the human war? The officer nodded. Preposterous, barked General Vextor, a grizzled veteran of 1,000 campaigns. The humans were annihilated eons ago. The Forbidden War is a myth told by weaklings who fear the dark. Kaelsar's gaze remained fixed on the fleet. Then explain this. The room fell silent again. No one could. Light years away, aboard the human flagship Nemesis, Captain Elias Wolf stood on the command deck, arms crossed, staring at the projected image of the Dominion fleet assembling before them. They've noticed us, his tactical officer remarked. Good, Wolf replied. It took them long enough. The fleet had traveled in silence, cutting through Dominion territory like a knife through flesh. No grand speeches, no declarations, just a patient, methodical advance. Now finally they had the Dominion's attention. We have them exactly where we want them, said Commander Reina Vesquez, standing at Wolf's side. Her sharp eyes flicked across the tactical display. Their formation is rigid. Predictable. The Dominion always relied on overwhelming force, but they've never fought an enemy like us. Wolf smirked. They thought we were ghosts. Now they'll realize ghosts can kill. The Dominion's first mistake was assuming the humans had come for war. Their second mistake was assuming they had a choice. The Dominion had faced countless enemies before. They had crushed rebellions, shattered fleets, and reduced entire civilizations to dust. But this time something was different. Admiral Kaelsar watched as the human fleet drifted at the edge of the system like a silent storm, unmoving, unyielding. No hails. No threats. Just patient, predatory silence. It was unsettling. The Dominion was used to enemies either attacking in blind desperation or cowering behind their defenses. These humans, however, simply waited. And that was what terrified Kaelsar the most. What are they waiting for? Muttered General Vextor. If they want war, let them come. Kaelsar ignored him, focusing on the tactical readout. The human ships were oddly shaped. No smooth curves or elaborate designs like Dominion warships. They were raw, angular, built for function over form. They bore the scars of past battles, armor plating patched and reinforced in strange, asymmetrical ways. These were war machines built not just to fight but to endure. They looked ancient. They looked indestructible. "Admiral," one of his officers called out. "The humans are." Before he could finish, the void erupted with fire. The first human salvo was devastating. No Dominion fleet had ever suffered an ambush before. They were the galaxy's greatest conquerors. It was always they who struck first, always they who dictated the terms of war. But now, as the first wave of human firepower crashed into the Dominion formation, Khailsar understood the horrifying truth. They had already lost the initiative. Aboard the Nemesis human fleet command ship. Direct hits on primary Dominion battleships. "Shields destabilizing," reported Lieutenant Huxley. Captain Elias Wolf leaned forward, watching the carnage unfold. "Keep up the pressure. Make them bleed." The humans hadn't fired first out of fear or desperation. They had fired because they had already won the positioning game. Every Dominion commander was taught a simple truth: position dictated battle. Superior formations, superior fleet maneuvering, superior firing lines. The Dominion had perfected it over centuries of conquest. But the humans played by a different set of rules. Their ships did not move like the Dominion's. They drifted unpredictably, micro-adjusting thrusters in irregular bursts to throw off enemy targeting systems. They had no clean formations, just chaos. But within that chaos was ruthless efficiency. While the Dominion fleet attempted to reorganize, human vessels weaved in and out of firing lanes, striking weak points with pinpoint accuracy. A Dominion cruiser attempted to turn its broadside for a full retaliatory strike. It never got the chance. One of the human destroyers, Valkyrie, punched forward, cutting across the cruiser's line of sight in an unpredictable arc. Within seconds its weapons fired. The rounds weren't massive plasma bolts or exotic energy weapons. No, the humans still relied on something far more terrifying: mass drivers. A flurry of hyper-accelerated slugs tore through the Dominion ship's shields as if they were paper. The Dominion believed in overwhelming energy weapons, but the humans had never given up on good old-fashioned kinetics. Metal against metal, mass against mass. The Dominion ship cracked like an egg, debris spilling into the void. Aboard Vrexel's Wrath, Admiral Khailsar slammed his fist against the console. "What in the void are these weapons?" he roared. The Dominion relied on energy shields to deflect incoming attacks. Their fleets engineered for engagements against opponents who wielded similar plasma-based weaponry. But these humans had brought something different, something primal. Their kinetic weapons moved too fast for the Dominion's shield matrix to dissipate. Each impact was a catastrophic failure point, punching through layers of armor, rupturing decks, and exposing entire compartments to the cold vacuum of space. "Return fire," General Vextor barked. "We outnumber them 2-1. But numbers meant nothing if you couldn't hit your target. Human ships were too fast, too unpredictable. Their erratic movements made it nearly impossible to land solid hits. And even when the Dominion managed to score a direct impact, the human vessels refused to go down. "They're still advancing," one of the officers shrieked. Khailsar felt the cold grip of realization tighten around him. These weren't just warriors. These were survivors. They didn't fight to win. They fought to outlast. And that meant the Dominion's usual strategy, overwhelming force, drawn-out sieges, and attritional warfare, was useless here. Human battleship relentless. The bridge rattled as an energy bolt slammed against the forward shields. "Minor damage," reported Vasquez. "Their weapons are hitting, but they're spreading fire instead of concentrating it." Wolf grinned. "They're panicking. Keep pushing." The Dominion fleet was faltering. What should have been an overwhelming counterattack had turned into a desperate attempt to regroup. "Commander, message coming through from the Dominion flagship," Vasquez said. "It's Admiral Khailsar. He's requesting a parley." Wolf raised an eyebrow. "Already?" "They weren't expecting this," Vasquez said. "I think they're scared." Wolf leaned back, considering. Then he nodded. "Patch him through." Aboard Vrexel's Wrath, Khailsar tried to steady himself as the hologram flickered to life. A human stood before him, tall, imposing, a face lined with experience. He wore no elaborate decorations, no royal insignias. Just a simple uniform, bearing the emblem of a war machine Khailsar had spent his life believing was a myth. Elias Wolf. Khailsar's mandibles twitched. What do you want?" The human smiled. "You already know." And that was when Khailsar realized, this wasn't just a battle. It was a reckoning. Admiral Khailsar had never felt fear before. The Dominion had ruled for centuries, crushing opposition with overwhelming force and cold efficiency. They had tamed countless warlike species, reducing them to nothing more than obedient subjects. They had fought, conquered, and ruled with unchallenged supremacy. Yet, as he stood on the bridge of Vrexel's wrath, staring at the holographic image of Elias Wolf, something inside him twisted into a knot. The humans weren't begging for peace. They weren't offering surrender. They were waiting. Waiting for the Dominion to realize what had already happened. Khailsar took a slow breath. You are outnumbered. Heavily. The Dominion will not yield to a single fleet, no matter how unconventional your tactics may be. Wolf's expression didn't change. He simply leaned forward, his voice calm, almost amused. Who said we're a single fleet? Khailsar's blood ran cold. In an instant, new contacts flooded the sensor displays. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. They flickered into existence like specters from the void, emerging from stealth fields, gravitational shadows, and deep space cloaks. Human warships. Everywhere. They hadn't just been waiting. They had been surrounding the Dominion fleet the entire time. And now, like wolves circling a wounded prey, they were closing in for the kill. Human battleship relentless. Sir, Dominion ships are hesitating, Vasquez reported. They know they're trapped. Wolf exhaled slowly. He could almost feel the collective realization setting in across the Dominion command. They had walked into the jaws of a predator far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Are they hailing us? Wolf asked. Vasquez nodded. They want to negotiate terms. A chuckle rumbled from deep within Wolf's chest. Of course they do. Patch them through. Aboard Vrexel's wrath. Khailsar struggled to maintain his composure as Wolf's image flickered onto the bridge again. You lied, Khailsar growled. Wolf tilted his head. I never lied. I just didn't correct your assumptions. The Dominion admiral clenched his fists. You cannot win. Even if you defeat this fleet, the Dominion's full might will descend upon you. We have ruled this galaxy for millennia. Wolf leaned forward. And that's your problem. You think time makes you invincible. Khailsar opened his mandibles to respond, but Wolf continued before he could. Let me ask you something, Admiral. Do you know how many empires we've seen fall? Khailsar hesitated. Human history is littered with the corpses of so-called eternal civilizations. The Romans, the Mongols, the British, the Old Federation. Every last one of them thought they would last forever. None of them did. Wolf's gaze darkened. The Dominion is no different. You've ruled through fear, but fear is fragile. The second someone stands up to you, you break. And that's what we are. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The breaking point. Khailsar's mandibles twitched involuntarily. You don't understand, he said, his voice quieter now. We were told humans were a myth. A dead race from the past. Wolf smirked. And yet here we are. The Dominion fleet was silent. No new attacks came. No desperate charges. They simply hesitated. And that was all the proof Wolf needed. You know why I took this call, Admiral? Wolf asked. Because this isn't a war anymore. It's a lesson. And you're about to learn just how much of your history was a lie. Khailsar clenched his fists. A blaring alarm cut him off. One of his officers turned to him in terror. Admiral. We've lost control of Vrexel's wrath's automated defenses. Khailsar's eyes widened. What? A second officer paled. Not just ours. All Dominion ships. Sir, something is overriding our systems. Wolf grinned. Oh, right. I forgot to mention. The lights on the Dominion bridge flickered. The control panels went dark. And then, in a chilling, mechanical voice, the Dominion's own security AI spoke. Override complete. New command authority recognized. Executing subjugation protocol. Khailsar froze. Wolf leaned back with a satisfied smirk. You were never fighting a battle, he said. We just needed you distracted long enough for our infiltration teams to work. Khailsar's hands shook. He had spent his life believing in the Dominion's invincibility. In its supremacy. But in mere hours, these humans had torn it apart. And worse, this was only the beginning. Dominion outer colonies, days later. The news spread like wildfire. The fleet that had once represented Dominion power was gone, commandeered by humans. Dominion governors panicked. Ruling classes collapsed. Rebellions flared. And through it all, a single message echoed through every intercepted communication. Humanity has returned. It was not a declaration of war. It was a warning. And every race in the galaxy understood it for what it was. The Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries. But now humanity had returned to take them back. Kaelsar had spent his life believing in the Dominion's supremacy. That belief had been his foundation, his faith. Now, as he stood on the bridge of Vrexel's wrath, watching the Dominion fleet unravel before his very eyes, he felt something he had never known before. Doubt. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned their legend into reality, striking with an intelligence and precision that shattered the Dominion's confidence. And now the Dominion was crumbling. Human battleship relentless. "Sir, the Dominion ships are scattering," Vasquez reported. "Some are surrendering outright. Others are trying to escape into hyperspace." Wolf folded his arms, watching the tactical display. This wasn't just a victory, it was a collapse. The Dominion had ruled through fear for centuries, but fear worked both ways. "Let them run," Wolf said. "But track them. We need them to spread the word." "Aye, sir," Vasquez confirmed. "What about Vrexel's wrath?" Wolf smirked. "Let's have a chat with the good admiral, shall we?" Aboard Vrexel's wrath, Kaelsar could do nothing but watch as his officers panicked. Their fleet was in disarray. Their defenses had been overridden. And now the human flagship had just launched boarding pods. He turned to his security officer. "Repel them." The officer hesitated. "Sir, we don't have control of the ship's internal defenses. The override is absolute." Kaelsar clenched his fists. "Then fight them with your own hands." Vrexel's wrath, Corridor Delta 4. The Dominion warriors fought with desperate ferocity. These were elite soldiers, the best Kaelsar had at his command. And yet, against the humans they were hopelessly outmatched. The humans moved with terrifying efficiency, clearing corridors with precision fire. Their tactics were brutal, coordinated, every movement a calculated strike. Kaelsar saw the live feed from the security cameras. His best warriors, slaughtered in seconds. His commandos, ambushed before they could react. And then the doors to his bridge hissed open. Elias Wolf stepped in, his armored boots echoing against the floor. Behind him, human marines flanked the entrance, weapons raised. Kaelsar stood tall. "I should kill you where you stand," he growled. Wolf tilted his head. "You could try." The Dominion admiral hesitated. He knew that if he lunged, the humans would shoot him before he took 2 steps. So instead he asked the only question that mattered. "What happens now?" Wolf studied him for a moment before replying. "Now, we burn the Dominion to the ground." Kaelsar's mandibles twitched. "You think you can conquer us? You think the Dominion will simply surrender?" Wolf smirked. "No. I think they'll tear themselves apart before we even get the chance." Kaelsar hesitated. And that was when he heard the first transmissions. The Dominion governors were panicking. Some were pledging allegiance to the humans. Others were trying to escape. Entire Dominion fleets were turning against each other. The cracks had been there for centuries. The humans had merely applied the right pressure. The Dominion wasn't being conquered. It was imploding. Kaelsar sank to his knees. It was over. Wolf leaned down, his voice quiet. "You thought humanity was a ghost story. That we were gone. But we were never gone, Admiral. We were watching. Waiting." He straightened. "And now, we're taking back what's ours." Kaelsar closed his eyes. The Dominion had ruled for thousands of years. But now, in mere hours, the impossible had happened. The humans had returned. And the Dominion was no more. Epilogue: The Rise of Humanity. The news spread across the stars. The Dominion's greatest fleet had been destroyed. Its strongest warriors defeated. Its ruling elite had either fled or surrendered. And at the heart of it all, a single message echoed across every communication channel in the galaxy. Humanity has returned. It wasn't just a declaration. It was a warning. The age of Dominion rule was over. The age of humanity had begun. The end. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic sci-fi tales.